Right guys, we're in Assetto Corsa Competizione and I've been asked to do a bit more ACC content, and for this one, one of the guys on leaving comments on my channel actually said, oh, do a bit of the Ferrari, let's talk a bit about the Ferrari. And I thought, yeah, let's do that. It's a car that I don't drive regularly in ACC, if at all. It used to be my main car maybe up until about a year ago, but since then I've driven the McLaren, the Lambo, the Audi is my most recent one. But I thought, let's jump back into the Ferrari and give it a bit of a run. We've got a 32 car grid or something like that, all GT3s at Spa for 10 minutes, and I'm going to talk everything about Ferrari, kind of things to watch for in the sim, how it handles, its characteristics, stuff like that. I do have a slightly modified setup on the car, which I'll share after the race. And yeah, let's see what this is all about, what the AI is all about, and yeah.
Go.
We'll probably get a 4 or 5 laps of Spa in the 10 minutes, so let's go for it. Very bumpy at the top of Eau Rouge there. And off we go down Camel. Okay. Let's settle in for at least a sector, and then we'll start trying to feel what the car is all about.
Good start, mate.
Generally speaking, the Ferrari has a tendency out of the box to push understeer quite a bit. It's a very stiff feeling car, very stiff on the front. Its real strength is medium to high speed. Doesn't do too well in the slow speed, as well compared to some other cars. It's very stiff, and it's good to kind of keep it fairly stiff and fairly flat to maintain the aero platform. The second you start kind of going too much outside of that window, it can get a bit pitch sensitive, particularly on brakes. But you know, a relatively safe setup can still be fairly quick. You can see here I've got maybe a slightly twitchier setup. I'm running kind of low downforce, being Spa tends to work best. Well, on this car at least, because the Ferrari itself, you know, has good downforce out of the box with its, you know, design, its under tray and all of that, so you can get away with running a lower wing. But yeah, again, it does feel really stiff in general compared to other cars within ACC. So it just needs to be a bit of care, a bit of precision when you're driving it. That's it. Oh, I couldn't get it turned in there. Hesitant to turn in with the brakes fully applied. You do that so often, you just end up pushing on. One thing to note about ACC, by the way, as well, is the brake bias settings, right? So you can see there where I'm changing the brake bias on the fly. I have it mapped to my steering wheel, so 57.2 or whatever. In ACC, they are not actual... Oh shit. Shit. They're not actual values, they're just a numeric placeholder, if you like. The actual brake balance on the real car, according to QNOS, is under an NDA, so that 57.2 may not necessarily mean 57.2% brake balance to the front. It could be 60, it could be 50. So just so you know that with ACC. So with the brake bias, there may be a bit of trial and error involved in getting that kind of understood and clear. Right, so under real pressure now from Caldarelli behind. Yeah, a little bit green in the Ferrari, to be honest, but yeah, this is actually quite interesting. Oh, twitchy at the back under brakes. So yeah, I mean, if this had been the Audi R8, I probably wouldn't be in this situation right now, but here we are. Off the brakes, let it roll in, try and stabilise it with the throttle, wait for the right plant it, and hope the rear brakes traction a teeny bit just to get it around the corner. That Lambo now is starting to really push on. Yeah, I think I'm getting a better exit up this straight than the Lambo and the Audi behind it for Vish, but I do think in the rest of the lap they do sort of come back at me. Which you'll have to, you'll find that as well if you do race online in ACC. You'll find that whatever car you're driving will typically tends to have an advantage at one part of the track. And at another part of the lap you might find your competitors then start to reel you in or pull away or whatever the case may be. Another thing with ACC as well, the balance of performance on these cars changes from track to track. So certain tracks and certain seasons as well actually, right? So ACC has 2018 through to 2022 seasons, I'm pretty sure, in the SRO European GT Series, GT3. There's the British GT as well, and then there's the Intercontinental GT Challenge as well. So these are all represented in the game, right? So what you've got to remember is that each year on each track and each car, balance performance changes. And that can be in the way of power band adjustments, it can be in the way of extra ballast on the car, and it can also be in the way of fuel tank size. And ACC, because they have the official SRO license, they model, I believe, the actual rules as they were in the actual championship. So yeah, quite authentic, and and so it should be. I mean, they have the license for it. I'm sure there's agreements on both sides that the license and the series must be represented accurately, etc., etc. So the drive and feel itself in ACC is in my opinion, really good as well. It's more in depth in the sense that you have to think a lot more about how the car is reacting, how it's being placed. Like certainly at the level in ACC that I would be typically. Now I know I'm not doing quick laps in this because I'm not used to the Ferrari really. I've been in the Audi for the last while, but it's like any sim. When you get into the, let's say, the more advanced development in it as a driver, you start to notice these extra things like what works and what you need to be aware of and stuff like that. And with that in mind, like I would say ACC is fairly complex in that sense that particularly when it comes to setup and the ride heights front and rear, tends to have quite a big impact on the overall handling characteristic of the car.
Was that 219.94?
And then as well, obviously you've got to, if you go to different brake on the car, like lower front, higher rear, then you have to kind of control that pitch as well with damper settings and stuff like that. It's not good enough just to, deck the front and raise the rear. There's extra things you need to take into consideration as well.
Okay, Gary, you've used half your fuel.
Okay, so it's be this lap and one more. Braking in to the corner too much there, and the back of it just wants to come around. Oh shit. Okay.
Warned about track limits. Seeing right front locking into Corsair.
Anyone that says ACC is just a matter of stand on the brake and turn into the corner, watch that corner back.
2 minutes to go, 2 minutes.
That's what happens if you stand on the brake and turn. You just end up understeering into Narnia and locking the inside wheel as well. So yeah, and to be honest, and on some of the Automobilista forums and stuff, which I'm on, and I play AMS2 a lot, as you know, and there was a couple of comments on there that the braking characteristic in ACC is that you just stand on the brake and turn, and there's this endless supply of lateral grip as you're on the brake, and it's just not true, like as we've seen. You can trail brake deep into a corner, but that's a factor of, well, two things. Firstly, like, these GT3s have very advanced ABS systems, and that's true to real life as well. Add to the fact as well that I've a lot of hours in this sim, and there's a limited selection of tracks in this game compared to others. It's so focused on the actual series, and you know, given that there's a,
Okay, Gary, 5 minutes of fuel.
let's say, a limited amount of tracks, it means that I've got a lot of laps around each of them, so I know exactly where I should brake and where I should stop trailing and stuff like that. So take that into account as well. Oh, I have to come off the throttle. Just don't have Eau Rouge flat out in this car. Well, I do normally, but just don't want to risk going off track. So quick as 219s. 2 seconds off my usual Audi time. If not a smidge more, 2.2 seconds off. But I remember the days when I used to do like 2:17.5s in this car. Sometimes in corners, if there's a little bit of grip left on the front and you feel that the car's pushing wide with grip left in reserve, sometimes a tiny dab on the brake can just help it pitch in a tiny bit, but only if there's available grip back on the front axle. Come on. There's a little bit of understeer on throttle, so the setup still needs a bit of work here generally, but you get the idea that you can probably see there when I'm going onto throttle, the back of it is like squatting down a tiny bit, and that's just a number of things. It could be the damper needs to be stiffened up, the bump stop range needs to be brought a little bit tighter, or the rear suspension just made stiffen it up a tiny bit. Alright.
Nice one, Gary. Great win. You deserved that today.
Right, so let's summarize this. Let's just bang on the replay while we go through a few words about ACC, right? So what I'll do a few videos, I think, on ACC over the next couple of weeks, and I might switch it up every couple of days or whatever. Every time I put up one of these videos, I'll change up the car. So we start with the Ferrari, probably go Audi, Lamborghini, Bentley, whatever. But generally speaking, like what we've seen here has been like a close race with the AI. They were able to attack, I was able to defend. There were certain bits of the track where I was starting to pull away, certain bits of the track where they would close the gap again. And that all makes for good racing. The AI didn't do anything stupid, which was also good. They behave in a predictable manner, and in general the driving was good. You could see as well through the race, as I was driving, as I was giving inputs, whether it was steering with the brakes, with the throttle, the car was behaving and reacting instantly to those inputs, right? Whether it was, and you've seen it as well, like there were certain areas where under brakes it was a little twitchy, you had to correct when the weight shifted, or you may, if you watch this back, you might see little areas of when I gave a throttle, the back would squat down a tiny bit and the front would push forward, like almost like a push understeer. And you could see clearly in the driving, I think I could certainly feel it, right? But hopefully that came through on the video as well. And what I'm getting at with that is that the inputs are immediately linking back to what the car is doing on track, right? So your input, your control, no matter how small the inputs are, whether it's a bit of brake, a bit of throttle, a bit of steering, whatever, is picked up immediately in the sim, in the car. And sometimes I say to people, ACC is quite sensitive. That's what I mean by that. Sensitive is maybe the wrong word. maybe raw and nowhere to hide, basically. You know, it's like how you drive the car is exactly what you get back out of the car. You know, it's that rawness, I guess, if you like. You know, the weight shift, the lateral forces, how the car behaves on throttle, how it behaves on brake. It all behaves as I'd expect, you know. Like, I've never driven a 488 Evo GT car, obviously, right? But how it behaves is kind of what you'd expect, you know. Like, they're big chunky cars. Like, these things weigh like what, nearly 1,400 plus kilograms, you know, with a bit of fuel on board and stuff like that. Like, they're heavy, very heavy cars. And then some cars are way down even more. Like, I think the Ferrari's about 1,400 kilos, in fact. But then you have the Lambo behind it, which is like 1,480, I think, on this track. So, you know, you've got nearly 1.5 tons of a race car. This is probably what puts some people off ACC, because they feel, oh, the car it feels sluggish, it feels lethargic. It's a GT3 car. It probably should feel those things when you've driven something faster. So, like, if I hop out of like, even if I come out of a Formula 3 car in AMS2 and jump into ACC, like, ACC would feel a bit slower by comparison. They probably end up doing the same lap times, but the Formula 3 car feels more nimble. It definitely feels to have more corner force, more cornering ability. But no doubt the braking with the ABS and the traction control and all of that stuff, and, you know, straight line speed to some degree, makes the GT3 probably match the lap time of the Formula 3 type car. But you know what I mean, it's all relative. Like, your interpretation of how a car should feel within a simulator may be one thing, and that may be influenced by what you are used to driving, or what, you know, and that could be the type of car, it could even be the sim that you're used to driving. So there's a number of factors that play into that. What I try to do when I do these videos, you know, it's to help people, like, break down through all the bullshit that's out there in terms of, you know, within, let's be honest, like, within the sim racing community to a large extent, where, you know, the best sim out there is insert your favorite sim here, right? Bottom line is, and I've said this many times, they all do things quite well. Different things. ACC, you know, it has the licenses, it has the, like, every track in the thing is laser scanned. They've got certain amounts of data for the manufacturers, and, you know, whatever about all of that, the bottom line with ACC is all of the cars on track are balanced pretty well in most cases, across all tracks, across all series. And, you know, they've got good physics, the cars behave the way they should. The only down points of ACC is there's an exploit on the physics engine, which is common knowledge at this stage, where running certain elements of negative tow on the front and rear can help with rotation, and sometimes up in the caster angle a little bit on the front as well can help offset some of the camber gain within the physics. You know, the caster bit is not as important, but the negative tow definitely would be a thing. So some cars would run anywhere from negative 12 degrees to, or sorry, negative 0.12 degrees to negative 0.4 degrees of camber, or sorry, not camber, tow, front and rear. I'll show you my setup now, in fact, after this replay. But the point is, like, apart from those two things that we're aware of, you know, if we get past that little exploit, and, you know, every sim has an exploit of some kind, but ACC for the most part has been cracked with just that one or those two things just to consider. And Kunos, as far as I know, are redoing the tire model for the next big update. It's due to launch in, you know, the start of 2023. So if they manage to, you know, fix the model and fix that negative tow thing, brilliant. But let's see. it doesn't really affect the online competitiveness because everyone is doing it, and with everyone doing it, no one has an advantage. It's just a way to maybe knock another couple of tenths off the lap time and help with a bit of rotation. But again, if you're the offline casual racer that is not racing competitively in leagues and stuff like that, you don't need to worry about stuff like this because these, let's call them exploits, are only really a thing so far as, when you're racing competitively online, you need to look for every 10th because everyone else is doing it, So yeah, I wouldn't worry. Like if you're an offline racer, I wouldn't sweat it. Yeah, just looking back through the field of some other battles. Yeah, I mean, I've said a number of times, like, a few occasions over the last while in different videos as to why I think ACC nails the GT3 genre pretty well. And it's not for me to say it's the best at GT3s and blankly say that, but when it comes to GT3s and GT racing and stuff like that, it's difficult to see what it does wrong, to be perfectly honest, right? Think of it for a second, it's got all the official cars, all of the models from different years. The balanced performance across the whole board is brilliant. They've got the actual BOP, not just across the cars, but the tracks and the series. When it comes to online, they have the ability to do, mid-race driver swaps. This is one reason why endurance racing is such a big thing in ACC online. Like I've done 2 endurance races this year, like 10 hours of Watkins Glen. We've done a 24-hour spa there 2 months ago, I think it was, or a month ago. And not to mention, if I want to do an offline race, I can save mid-race and come back to it later on or whatever. So there's those elements that when you mash all of that together as a GT endurance racer, it's difficult to see where this sim makes mistakes. Now people will say that it's easy to drive or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, if you go with a safe setup, it can be easy to drive. They're supposed to be relatively easy to drive. You have to remember, guys, these cars in reality, in real life, are driven by dentists and businessmen and stuff like that, and business women as well, that have a lot of money. They're fans of motorsport. They want to go and do it themselves, and it's a customer racing series, right? So these cars are not aimed at professional race drivers. They're aimed at customers. They're aimed at you and me if we had enough money. Ferrari want to give Gary a car that he's not going to kill himself in. They want me to race, they want me to have fun and not die, basically, right? So you have to remember that when you're talking about GT3s. If we were to say, take the Formula Ultimate in AMS2 and compare that, let's say, to the equivalent in Assetto Corsa or something like that, or RFactor, whatever, then yeah, we expect a certain level of difficulty because that particular type of car is strung very highly, right? It's going to be a bag of cats to try and drive on the limit. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be very twitchy and stuff like that. But these GT3 cars can be made to feel like that if you set them up in such a way that, you're looking for those last few tenths of lap time. As you've seen, it wasn't all plain sailing with me driving here. There was certain elements of twitchiness, as you've seen. And yeah, it certainly wasn't, let's say, a walk in the park as such. But yeah, guys, that's ACC in a bit of a nutshell, a bit of an overview. Like I say, I this video is not meant to alienate people. If you dislike ACC for whatever reason, then that's okay. It's not for me to convince anyone otherwise, but this is just to highlight that, different sims have a lot of other stuff out there that's not, like, I have every sim. I've got, Race Room, ACC, AC, AMS1 and 2, RFactor. And I bounce between them all. They all offer different things, and they do different things quite well. And like I say, there's pros and cons to nearly every racing sim out there. So to rabbit hole into one, and I used to do this, by the way. I used to be an ACC fanboy, and yeah, once you overlook that level of kind of ignorance, I guess, toward a certain sim, you realise that, well, hang on a minute, if somebody else says something positive about a sim just because I don't drive in it, don't shoot it down straight away. Like, listen to the person, what they're explaining to you, and it's not for anyone to say, oh, well, you're wrong, or I don't like it because what you're saying is incorrect. Like, I mean, have healthy debates, guys. Be open about it. But I would always recommend people, drive every sim. They all have something to offer. Some of them are more temperamental than others. Like, and I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole now. There's one that I could mention, but I won't. No, I definitely won't. But yeah, like I say, like my two favourites are AMS2, ACC, in equal measures. For GT3, the online competitive nature of racing, ACC fulfills that, for having fun and the driving experience and the sounds and all of that. I think AMS2 gives a great choice and has more variety of tracks, and not only that, but even the tracks they have, they've got different layouts, like Cordoba, for example. So yeah, that's it, guys. We'll leave it there. If you're thinking about ACC or whatever, hopefully this video has helped make your decision whether to or to not download it. But yeah, if you do decide to download it and you want any pointers or help, just drop a question or whatever in the comments, and I will get back to you. Until then, I'll put another video on ACC out maybe next week sometime, and we'll jump into another car, maybe I don't know, McLaren, Mercedes, or whatever. Suggestions always welcome. But yeah, we leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching, and until the next one.